up, guys? It's Johnny Tacos here with another exciting episode of the Johnny Taco Show. But before I get to my guest today, I have a couple announcements. Number one, if you are looking for a church and you've been hurt before, and believe me, I've been church hurt before too, because of the way I look, the tattoos on my arms, the music I like. The movies I enjoy because I love a good horror movie. You know, I love a good scary movie. It gets me on my toes. There's a lot of things that just churchgoers feel like they can't associate with you that you're not Christian enough. But I do have a place for you. It is Renovation Church at the Peak in Midlothian, Texas. They read straight from the Bible. You have great sermons. It's just an awesome time. You get to meet people that love the same things that you do, and you get to worship. You get to get fed spiritually and physically because if you go to the hub where I produce, you'll be able to eat some good breakfast before the word. So it's going to be awesome to see. I will have the address right here. Follow my finger to the address. And that's if you're in the Dallas County, Ellis County, Tarrant County, Johnson County area, or even if you want to drive 3 hours just to go to church. Hey, who am I to tell you what to do? So, again, that is Renovation Church at the Peak, and pretty soon we are going to have the groundbreaking for a brand new sanctuary. I want to give a big thanks to all the people who are contribute to that building. It's going to be an awesome building, and we'll all be able to have one service together. So it'll fit about 800, 900 people. So bring your friends, your family, that total stranger that keeps staring at you while you're walking by. Just anybody, just say, hey, you want to know more about Jesus? Go to Renovation Church at the Peak. Meet me there and we'll worship together. All right. And also, I want to reach out to the Finding Hope Music Festival. This year, it's going to be awesome. It's going to be a little different than the other years. We're going to have some CCM music playing. I can't tell you the band. It's a big, huge band. I'm so lucky to be a part of it. If you want more information on Finding Hope Music Festival, there will be a link at the page as well as right here. So just get checked out. Just see what their mission are. You can, if you get bored and you want to listen to some old podcasts of the Johnny Taco Show while you're checking out the schedule, under media, they have all my episodes right there. So check that out. Give a big shout out to Stephanie and the gang for putting that together. It is an awesome, awesome festival every year, and I just see it getting bigger and bigger. Also, just to let you know, summer is coming. Make sure you stay hydrated. If you're in the South, um, it gets really hot. Texas, it feels like you're in an oven. I usually call it God's oven because we are all cooking here, and and also in Florida where my guest is from. He can tell you all about the humidity in Florida because I used to live there, and there's a reason why I don't live there anymore because this skin likes cold air. Even though I moved to Texas, and that's about the same. It's about the same Texas heat and Florida heat, but Florida's more of a wet heat, so you get sweat in places you never knew sweated. So, but that's about all for the announcements here. We have an awesome show here. We have Valentin and his band Absalom, and it's going to be awesome show to hear about his testimony. And man, I talked to him before we got into the show, and I tell you, he is a man of God, and the events that had that taken to get him closer to Jesus is just awesome. So, without any more hesitation, hey, Valentin, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me, Johnny.
Hey, thank you for being on the show, man. I'm digging that background there with the
Thank you. Yeah, yeah. the horns usually end up like right in the middle whenever I have a meeting. So people tend to point that out, and then I just, trying to point a bit up, like, no, I'm good. I got better stuff upstairs. But it ended up being sort of like I just I've noticed whenever I do music or anything, when you just let it flow, a true story comes out. When you try and create and design stuff, it's usually something lesser always comes out. But when you just let it flow, and that's how when things align, things deeper, things higher, things more telling speaks. And as I saw that, these, kind of like ball or this kind of like worship, the calf, the golden calf, and this, and I love the serenity and the horns and all that stuff of it. But as it all kind of came together, and I told my wife when we were traveling, I said, I just want to collect crosses. Like I went into one of these, like a very Mexican restaurant where it's very detailed and had just like massive amounts of crosses on the wall. And I'm like, I would love to have that. If I can just have that would be amazing. So I started to kind of collect little by little crosses. And this was made by Art Morales, one up here, like custom made. He does pinstriping and stuff. So that's very, very special to me. And then some knives and stuff that I've done with my father in Sweden. So it just starts to come together, an eclectic collage of life, right? As without, so within.
So you're from Sweden originally.
Yes, born and raised. Yeah.
I see your accent is starting to fade, being a part of the United States a little bit.
Yeah, and it's something it's interesting actually. Swedes are very shaming is a part of our culture very much. I think it's part of many cultures, but you have to be perfect. Things have to be perfect, and we take a lot of time sometimes to hide the imperfections. And whenever there's imperfections, we have no, we have ways to point that out. And there are when it comes to that, it's speaking English is one of those things. When you're making music in Sweden, and if you can, it always became, if we heard somebody with a little bit of Swedish accent, we started making fun of it. It was something, at least it's childish and something you grow up with, but it happens. So I think the perfecting it, trying to kind of like perfect it was something, at least me being very much into American culture, and I was born and bred on, on that, born and raised on it. And then with the kind of coexistence with the pagan background, right? The Vikings and all this, but the the attractions of the West, there was something calling. And I think that's been going on for many, many generations in Sweden. There was something calling. And when I got here, it took years until I realized, and it slowly kind of revealed itself. And I realized what it was, and it was freedom. We saw life outside of the barn, and we saw wild stallions, Mustangs, people living in their behavior in the way they were doing things that we couldn't do there. You couldn't stand out. You're not supposed to be, the tall, we call it tall puppy syndrome, or, cutting in line, whatever, or being too rambunctious. Or so for artists and musicians, it becomes very inspiring to see that, like, look, they're doing it. And I think it's very interesting with a lot of those artists are Christians, and people accept Christians, and even are, because I did it too. I listened to 16 horsepower and Woven Hand and things like that, and we discussed it even on the black metal side, and kind of like anti-Christians. We're like, there was a respect for his faith, for him, his faith. We had no belief in it, but the music spoke over that. When we heard dark music, we heard pain. We heard droniness. We heard this kind of the same kind of. So it's very interesting. I have a lot of people on the black metal side listening to something like 16 horsepower and Woven Hand because they're suffering. So in the suffering is where we connect. And I thought about this a lot. And I'm on a bit of a tangent on it, but it's such a vital part. When you come into this life, not every single person is promised they're ever going to receive love from another human being, or have it. They might come into this life or not at all. They might be ended before that, or they might come into this life and be brutally abused and beaten and destroyed by other human beings and turn into vile villains, right? And justifying that in all kinds of ways, but they've never experienced love. So we say that love and all these things are connectors. Pain and suffering is a much greater human connector, much more powerful, much more. You going to get that. That is promised in this life. Suffering is promised. Pain is promised. Um, and that's what I think is what we saw. But you see the same thing we see. So in that dialogue, in the music, we're like, okay, we're listening. We're listening. We might not believe exactly what you're saying, and we're not going to be praising Jesus over here, whatever we were, but we connected through that. And I think that's something through my process, sanctification process, coming to Christ and just, dying to myself over and over. I thought for a while, for years, oh, I'm going to have to leave all of this now. And it became clear, no, you just have to purify the toxic metal so you can reflect yourself in the silver and hand it over. And it's not going to be for you. But I was so happy when I came to that, when I understood what that meant. I said, so I get to do it? Yes, because it was the gift I gave. That's what that was the whole this, and I said, so I get to do it again, and I tear up on it. So I get to go back and do this again. Yes, and you're meant to do that. Go back to them
And
because they're still there.
and I feel you about the connection between suffering and pain because music to me in my youth was all if you listen to the music that I've listened to, it was all about pain. It's all about hurt. And it was a way to connect with another person and say, hey, do you like this band? Why do you like this band? Well, it reminds me of my childhood. And I'm like, well, it reminds me of my childhood too. I didn't have the parades and happiness and really a full time giving family. My mother was a drug addict. She was an alcoholic. Her suitors that she had many suitors that came over, and some of them were very abusive to her. So, and when she got drunk, she was very verbally abusive to me. So I lived in that life where the black metal kind of takes you by the hand and because you are suffering, it goes to the black metal, death metal, even up to the new metal right now because pain and suffering music is what's out there, what sells because it resonates with so many people. Now, if you do a song about love, 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 love all the time, I wouldn't believe it. I think it was all fake
Mm,
because I didn't have that love, love, love all the time. It was, and you're right. You said that you're not promised to have human contact of love when you're born on this earth. And people forget that, hey, they're not going to come to you. You got to come to them. And you got to go through that generational sin because if you look at it, the generational sin is what causes that suffering, that pain, because we are born into sin. We are sinners. And with sin comes pain, comes torture, comes sadness. But once you start noticing that you are a sin, and then you start going towards and gravitate towards Jesus, who was love, who was understanding, and he was no pansy if you think about it. He was not one of those guys that would just take a hit and just walk away.
mm,
Did tell you how he felt, but he did it in a way that was not like what I grew up with. He
mm,
did it in a way with stern kind of altercations, with
mm,
stern. So, but but when you were talking about that, you were kind of like a chief center back then of of the black metal. You were fully against the whole Christianity, but you said that you respected Jesus and the what he've done, but you're not considered yourself a Christian. Um, when we talked earlier, you said that you were doing your best to push down Christianity in that life in that season that you had. Am I wrong?
No, so the brushes I had with Christianity was at 16, I was with somebody who invited me, and this is me growing up in a childhood of like no father around. So I'm searching, right? And mother can't control me. God bless her. She always she's been good to me, and but she could never control me. I was my anger and my search took over. So, but I ended up somehow in a church, and what I did there was I ended up I was I liked the feeling. It was a nice feeling, but it felt almost like I didn't fit in. I didn't connect with it. And when they sorry, I have some is that hearing that noise? Is that noise coming in or is it good?
You're good. You're
Oh
good.
good, okay, sorry. So the I was there hitting on girls at the end of the day. That's what I was there for. I was looking around, but there was something I noticed. But they felt that goody two shoe, the whole righteousness. I'm like, no, 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 I'm not. I don't know what it was, but I looked down on it. I looked down on it like I knew something else, or I was better than that, or they were the fools, right? They were the sheeple. Uh, I didn't understand the sacrifice. I didn't understand the strength it took. I didn't those things. For me, it was the strength was to rebel, to resist, and to rise above and be against, and all those things. So I didn't know Jesus at all back then. I didn't understand Jesus. I could sense something, uh, but I think that was through my mother, and it's a long story, but it came full cycle. But then when it comes to music, we respected the people, not Jesus. We didn't know Jesus, or we didn't believe in Jesus, or knew any of his stories really more than kind of like the general ones. It was the commitment. You saw somebody that was like hardcore Southern, and then like brr. I'm like, yeah, it was their confidence. That's what we were respecting uh, more. And then with the music, we were wondering where are you getting this source from? We took our source from pagan culture. So we're singing about Loki, we're singing about the dark stuff, we're singing about the counter, or there was those two kind of like sources we went to in our place of self worship, uh, and we went to the Bible too to take stuff and turn it just did randomly, just for cool words, just for paragraphs. That's how they still do it. I think now it's just on such a decline where it's becoming uh, bands like Behemoth and this. They they're gonna grow old and look pretty foolish, and but it's too costly. Socially, it will cost them everything. So what they're trying to do now is find a way out. Is find a way to develop their music to a place where it's not about, and bands like Marduk have done this, and they're trying to get away because they see like, well, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense. And they don't want to go full, kind of like, well, who are we going to be anti against? And you go, well, do you want to go that route? Because then you're going to be one of those bands in that section, and you know how people, and especially the fans and followers they have, how they're going to react to it, and you're going to have a big schism there in their doctrines and black metal doctrines, right? And so it's interesting to see them now go through that, where they found an identity and they create an identity in their youth, and it's almost like a trauma bonding, right? And then you start monetizing from that trauma. People start coming together from that trauma, grouping around it. And once you become so, when it comes to Christian, I think that is the only band is Woven Hand and 16 Horsepower that is respected on that level. But my thoughts are this is it about the Christianity part? Uh, I don't think it's that. I don't know. I don't know why. I don't know why. And I see bands too. There's different types of Christians, right? I realized this when I came to Christ. I thought like, I'm here. Everybody, well, it's beautiful. And then I started picking up on the bickering that I didn't even know about. Now these guys are fighting these guys. Those guys are fighting those guys. There's some, of course, and the deeper I know there's a sound doctrine, and it's very important. But everybody's on different paths and journeys, getting to the same point in the end. So whether you're the good thief on the cross, and whether you're the weight of your, well, I did this, I did that, and then God says, well, that's not important. That was you guys making that up. Those things I can't decide on. But it's when it comes to the what it's going to look like when you go out, and I start looking at something like 16 Horsepower and Woven Hand, and I start seeing everything he was talking about to his audience and people were politically charged, politically something that connected with the culture I was in politically. And then he also speaks about Christ, but that seems to be something he has for himself and that he just used in the way we were. I'm not saying he does this. I'm just picking up on what I saw. And I'm like, well, why are we connecting? Because we're not connecting on Christ. We're not connecting on Jesus. We're not connecting on religion, but there's something else beneath it. And that's a culture within music and within this music and in the groups. And everybody's like, at what point are you willing to give up everything and everyone for your faith and to truly be in a sound doctrine, to truly do, knowing that you will be mocked, you will be, persecuted, you will be cast out of these groups, you will be stripped down, uh, and I think that there's something there underlying that connects, not necessarily a respect for Christianity. There's something else. That is my long, that's my long journey there and thoughts of it, where I'm just, it's important. And I think I'm so young. I'm on 4 years now in faith. So I'm a 4-year-old child with the grown man's experience, right? That's
And the beard. Don't forget the beard.
and a beard,
Yeah.
So everything becomes very 100 for me. So now that I'm a Christian, now that I'm following Christ, how do I do that? To the point of like, well, I don't want to be martyred. I'm too, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be going 40 days in the desert. I don't want to do this. Oh, I don't want to do fasting too long. I don't want to do, the levels of resistance. Well, I don't really want to be nailed on a cross and all those, holy cowardness, like where you're kind of like resisting it, but then understanding it. It's so much more important that it's very personal. And you can't put that on everybody else. No, no, no. Now you have to do this now, and you at my pace. And otherwise, you're wrong. And all this stuff is. If I'm on this journey where I'm having nightly terrors about things and thoughts and how much of it, like how deep I'm going on apologetics or trying to defend or my pursuit or what am I doing now, and then contemplating death, the old fear, that was the drive before that we try to mimic with masks and try, look, I'm death, I'm like them, and then you play this role back to an audience that is mesmerized by it. So you get to escape for a while, but then you go back home, and I know this, all of these people are deeply afraid of death because for them at the end. There's no Satan after. There's no nothing. They don't believe nothing. You don't believe nothing in that place. So for them, this is all a show. So they might as well use it. They might as well abuse it. They might as well do whatever, as long as they get those underlying needs met. And I think uh, that's where when you speak to people and when you look at people when you see what they're fighting for and what flags they're waving, if you identify the underlying needs, like, do you have fellowship? Do you have faith? Do you have a personal relationship with Christ? Are you talking to him? He is here. Like, are you just reading about him as a historical figure in the book, or are you talking to him right here, right now? When you think of his pain and suffering and all these things, do they make you cry? Do they make you to the point you understand, like, you did this for me? Like, that's the thing. It's so much more important than all the other stuff. And that things can take time. It can take time. It can take years to 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 have the luxury of, and also the pains that come from leaving things to get to those places where you can be. And then again, once we found somewhere that, of a place, we start to build again and we go away from it and we do this. So everything you do, well, what am I doing to make me run away? And how can I have it closer to home? I want that circle to be closer, but I want it to be producing like a seed. Like, if I have this is my soul. It's it's so deep for me, and it's so overwhelmingly important in comparison to everything else. But there's earthly responsibilities. I have my wife, my child, I have family, I have a past, I have a future, I have, payments, I have this and that. And I want to make music. I need to do this. I have relationships, but it is vital to, in all those places, don't let them be anything that leads you and pulls you away. You should be able to do all those things from the same point, as if you're in a prison cell, like Paul, right? In that's where you should be productive and produce and be absolutely at peace in that place. And that's my that's been my journey for the last, in the first couple of years, it was just, what do I do? It was just uprooting, staying away, fasting. And then it turned into, well, I can't just stay in a cave and fast. I can't just stay away from everybody. And then one realization after the other starts to come. As the more you study, the more you see, and the more you pray and listen, you get very simple instructions, like, go home. Or it's not a conversation that, but with different characters. It's a very simple, and it lingers on for a long time. And whenever you have the courage, the holy boldness to, what do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? And with the all in, kind of like, just take it and tell me, what is it that you want me to do? The respond is, for have me, it's been a very simple 1, 2, 3, like it's a sentence, and it's so low and it's so consistent, and it doesn't change if it's one, from a year. It's the same. Everything else is either my thoughts or influence characters. And when you question it, it changes in response, and it gets irritated eventually.
Yeah. I believe that. I believe that. And when you were saying that I don't want to be put on a cross, I don't want to be martyrized, all the people that I came to have that bond with, if I take this journey, if I go into Christianity, I'm going to lose these people. I'm going to lose these relationships that I had years with. And it's going to be hard. Nobody has ever said being a Christian was the easiest thing to do. Um, I think that the first thing you got to do on your road to Christianity, to not go over there and go balls to the wall, like rush through, because there are so many people that have that kind of mentality in their secular life where they go 100 miles to an hour right into a wall. They kind of infect that time with trying to be a Christian and kind of mix that in and still bring their old you into the Christianity, which hardly ever works, because then what you're doing is you're bringing that anger, the angst in there into Christianity and start pointing at people, hey, you're doing this wrong. You're doing this wrong. It's the holier than thou kind of method. What I do is I went through that same situation because I was at my point where I ridiculed. I couldn't understand why people can be to a God who let people die, or to let this thing happen to me. I was on that point like you were. I'm a very cerebral kind of guy. So I think about this stuff on a daily, monthly, timely manner. Um, the first thing you gotta do is you gotta surrender yourself, and that's the hardest thing to do is surrender yourself because you live in that me kind of thing because life is and on earth is what did I do? You get caught up, say, hey, I did this or I did that. And like you said, it doesn't mean anything to God because that wasn't God, that was you. God's grace, God's gifts, God's love, when it resonates from you, then you get into that mode where, hey, this is not me doing it. This is God doing this. This is God showing me love so I can show you love. But the one thing that I've learned and losing people, the one thing about it is if they were truly supposed to be with you, they would come back. And and the one thing to do is surrender and have that relationship. You don't have you don't have to go 100 miles an hour and start reading scriptures, which would be awesome if you knew all the scriptures. Well, and then you think about it, the enemy knew all the scriptures. Like you said, black metal artists, they go on to the Bible and pull out words
Mm.
that kind of that you can perverse into the own kind of music. And if you don't know the if you don't know scripture, you don't know the whole life of Jesus. That is okay, but what you need to do is you have to start with that relationship. And I get in arguments when people say, "Well, you have to surrender and you have to do all this stuff." No, you have to have that relationship. God came down and as Jesus, and he came up to the Pharisees because the Pharisees were like, "Hey, look, I'm a better Christian, holier person. Well, not Christian, sorry. I'm a holier person than somebody because I can open up and I can read these things and I can look at you and I judge you and you're not supposed to do that. God is the only judge, jury, and executioner and if it's God's will, then that's God's will. You can't just go around doing that because then you'll get a rude awakening. And I've done that. I went on a pedestal. And Valentin, I don't know if you have ever got that point where you were
Oh
on a
yeah.
pedestal and then God just knocked you off and said, no,
Yeah.
that is not your place.
It's in a, I guess in a subcon like in a behavioral way, like you said, like a dog returning to its vomit. In that way is where I now as a Christian, as a believer, it's like everything. When I have, and this is something the brain it just how we are kind of programmed and designed. We have a realization and we could be fully committed to the vision and the idea and the concept, but our bodies are delayed and our behavior is delayed because it is programmed down. It's a slow dripping program, right? And that way is your body continues to do things, chasing the dopamine, chasing the kicks, holding on to things out of fear. It fears. Your skin fears, like your nerve endings fears, like all those things in like like a choir, like they harmonize. So it's when you feel those things, you can't help yourself. It's counterintuitive to you can you can't help yourself. You can only give in to the promise and no. And a good example is a cold plunge. I don't know if you've done cold plunges, but my a good friend of mine here has been good friend, neighbor, and mentor, and we do woodwork together. And he's an old SWAT commander. He's going on 70, 68 now, and he is like built like a machine. And so I just look, and it's that like in that fellowship, I can see like, well, if I just hang around here, my body will mimic. My mind wants to mimic. My mind, like, yes, I would like to become like that, much more like that. Even a fraction of that, and I will be a stronger, physically stronger person and more disciplined. So let me hang out there and let it do. But now it's not just the mind and the body, like both. Be here physically in fellowship, and also stay on top of this, because one or the other is going to try and get away if you don't align them both and submit both. You can't have two, can't worship two gods, right? And that's where you, so when he's doing cold punches and I saw him, it was such an interesting thing. The first time I did it, well, I've done in Sweden, of course, jumping in cold, in ice weights and stuff. But here it was going into this almost this beautiful wood-built coffin, right? Cold water, baptism related, very much. And I didn't think about it before. But first time I went in beating my chest. I put on like, lyre Viking music, like war driven and stuff. And I still had that because that's how I beat the dark. That's how I went into a battle, or I did something before. And I went in, and I'm sitting there, I can take it, and I'm doing, and I'm behaving like a berserker in there. And I get out maybe 10 seconds later. I'm jumping out because that's how we do in wake. We jump in and jump out. So I'm in, the body's in like, and then I see him going. He turns on his music, which is worship music. He sinks in, and he has his hands together. I see it, and he goes just quiet, and I see it. He's praying. He's praying in there, and he went in so submissively and so peacefully, completely different from my tactic, which is the old way. And so I tried that. I tried that in mimic. I'm like, that's probably smarter. And I remember things like, don't do this, like tense up. If it's cold, relax, because it's going to be less cold. Like in winter in Sweden, if you start doing this, it gets worse. Relax, relax. Trust the body. It will stabilize. You'll be. It. So I then go in that way, and I put on that music, like something softer, and then I go in, I start praying. I say, thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. And I'm just repeating that. Thank you, Jesus. And I start thinking, and I feel the process of the body, like it's so cold, and I'm like already, I'm focused on gratitude. And I see, I trust. I just witnessed it that he was fine through the whole process. So he must be up here for me, because he didn't die. He didn't die. So I'm in the water. I'm praying. I'm saying thank you. And it goes about 30 seconds, and the pain starts to go away. And then 1 minute in, it's not cold anymore. And I'm in a completely different mindset. And then I start getting almost warm again. And I realize like I get it now. I passed the point of pain. I passed that. And that promise I saw was real. And I start thinking, could this be what he's talking about, what the crucifix, what the promise of heaven is, what the promise I see in when like, no, 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 I don't want to get back to the gym. I'm gonna get tired. It's gonna build up this wall. No, 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 it's painful, it's dangerous, this, it's that, you can do this, build up a wall of excuses. But we know on the other side, you can't, you feel so good, you're so alive. You're so back at it. And that's the promise. Once that cold plunge is done and you step out, you are you're high as a kite, in bliss, in peace, and your body is rewarding, is being rewarded with your immune system, your sense of all these things. So I realized this is probably the most physical since my actual baptism. And I got baptized right here across in the lake, and that was a very mental, but I wasn't cold in the water. it was a very symbolical. But when you did the cold plunge in prayer, it became that it's a very physical, telling how that process is. So I think about how broken my mind is in that, and I go, that's your broken mind. Those are not your thoughts. That's a broken program. That's a broken system. You built that. You're not a programmer. You're running on old stuff that's not, producing good fruit. That is not good. You have to trust that the ultimate program for your computer, your brain, right, your has been downloaded now, and all you have to do is stamp out the viruses. You have to make sure those things are not coming out, and you will then kind of let that happen. So it's yeah, it's very, and you kind of go back to those places and you hunt longer and longer bliss, longer, and you go, I'm doing it again, ain't I? Yeah. Maybe you're it's like mega churches. You want to get bigger and bigger crowds. You want to save people. You're not saving anyone. You can't save anyone. You've already been saved by His grace and by their submitting to the fact. But when people go on that journey, they want to get more and they stay in longer and they want longer effects from it. And it becomes about security, their salvation, about what they can do, and their ego. So whenever these things happen, because we think it's over here and it's in a place of in a center, right? A center point. Like we're looking at it from a timeline point we're trying to build up. So every single time I'm stressed, I tend to overdo things and get too far, and I go, "You're not talking to Jesus, are you? You walked away from him again, didn't you? And you know that in your anxieties, in your worries, in your building and scheming and control needs and doing this, you walked away from him. But thank God I can just turn around and he's right there. But it's going to be the amount of shame I build up that I have. It's like the prodigal son, right? To the point of like, I'm eating dog food. I'm eating like, I'm eating like, and I can't even face him turning around. But that's what I know now. I don't have that. I don't have him associated with anybody else, which is the purity of like coming so late into Christ. I think as you grow up, you look for Christ in people, and you can look in your father, right? Uh, and all those things. For my journey, it's been I see that all of my shortcomings and pains and is now the gift. So I turn around and he's right there, and I knew it. I just had to remember. I had to come back to the place of submit, submit. Yeah, but what if no. The promise is on the other side. Submit. You don't know where to go. Go to the Bible. Go to scripture. Go to prayer. Ask and submit. And keep track of the seasons and the fruit that's being produced out of love and gratitude and respect. Like, don't drop this baby. That's sort of like, it's not your child. It's a gift, and you are the ultimate, on this earth, the representative that you're going to hand over this child. You're going to be held responsible for that. So that's yeah.
Yeah, and to me, that you couldn't say it any better. You couldn't really you couldn't really explain it any more than I could. But the you have to surrender. You have to submit, because we fight so much with ourselves, and we fight so much with God that it doesn't go anywhere. It's like a circle, and you have to break that circle, and the only way to break that circle is submit. Um, so my question is Absalom, you're submitting to God, is what you submit to God.
100%. It's and just to finish on that, it's the in your prayer, like the question should be daily, how much have you submitted today? What else do you need to submit and give back? And how much have you forgiven today? Not that your forgiveness means anything for God. It is the behavior of it for him to see. It's pleasing for God to see us forgive. It is vital because it shows that we understand and we are, and for people that needs to hear it. And we know, like, I can't forgive you. That's not, I can't. You're forgive, but I can say the words and I can mean it from my heart so that the flesh can be get peace. And in that sense, so the spirit can come back together again and be where it should be. So, um, sorry, I went off on that one. The question was,
Is Absalom your
yes,
surrendering? Is your mean of surrendering to God? I know that it's a two-piece band at the moment, right?
yes, there are more. There's two pieces, me and Bobby, and there was a whole discussion about the band name first because Bobby is amazing, amazingly talented. He plays all the instruments. He's very trained in it, and he's just massively talented. And Absalom was when I coming from where I come from, I said, yes, we could create a worship band in the sense of let's make everything strict out of the Bible. Let's just repeat what's said in the Bible and let's preach to the choir. Uh, which I think is it's good. It's good to do that. It's vital. It fortifies and it strengthens and it unites. But I kept feeling like you're not supposed to go there. You're not supposed to go there. That's not you're supposed to go where they are, where you were, and get them and to help them. You have to go back there, and it's going back to your younger self. That's your parish. Every single person's parish that you're growing up to become a minister to speak to, and to be an elder and lead and guide. It is the past selves you've kind of been, where you can understand those things. It's not just leave that behind and now you're just going to hang out with the perfect Christians and everybody is like, that's going to be similar to hiding in a cave, I feel, or running away from the suffering, which is such a vital part. And it's easy to forget yourself in there. And I see that. And I've seen so much atheism in behavior, atheism in like in the Christian community, in the religion, right, of things, where it's very concerning because all the other stuff doesn't mean anything if you're still if your body's still like, yeah, no, I'm with you, and your body still goes on, you go, but you're still doing it, still doing it. It's still so Absalom became this. If I'm gonna be here or there, if I'm not liked here, if I'm not liked there, my old self is mocked and I'm not fitting in my new, my new self, and it doesn't matter. For me, it's not. I have to follow and listen. And everything I've written with my old band, we're still writing stuff and going to release music with Nixa. And it's been one of the points I realized where it was the first project where I started to just let things speak. That was outside of my kind of like I'm going to write this about this and that. No, just trust at this point that the best way for you to get it out and get in front of you, or to be as honest as possible, let it flow through you. And And that's how it's been with Absalom in the beginning. Am I shaping it or rebuilding it? What should we call it? The different names we had in the beginning. And Absalom became the reoccurring symbol. And I said, well, there's other bands that have that name, and there's this. It's not. I'm like, I don't care. I don't care. Absalom is the same thing we did with Death Wolf. Was like, no, no, no. Let's take the dark gods and lift them up. But we did it to like look at them because we identified with them. Loki the trickster. It's not trusted, and he's like this and that's. And we're like, yeah, look at that. And then look, look at all the giant. Look at all these misunderstood. They're the ones. Let's flip it on them. Let's be anti-religious. Let's be anti-Thor, anti-Odin, because that's now let's be even darker. That's what we were doing. Had no real. It was just a behavior, a rebellious kind of cycle we're in. And then here with Absalom, I said, well, there's something there. And with Absalom, why do I feel that it's such a good name for this project? Because I was Absalom. I was Absalom. But by the grace of God, I was brought back. I realized I was Absalom saved. Absalom doesn't get saved. And as I at some point I looked, I didn't know my son's name is Axel, which is my great grandfather's name. And Axel derives from Absalom. So Axel is like the Anglo, the northern way of saying Absalom, Axel. So it becomes so clear. And then I said, but what does it mean? It means father of peace. So in this journey, and I start seeing, so what are all, as I have let this, the naming of a child and the all the things that are like coming into place around me now, where I'm just like letting go, keep letting go, trust it. At Father of Peace. So how do I avoid my son becoming like Absalom? What avoided you? It's by the grace of God, of course, and miraculous what happened for me to see to see Christ and to be a father of peace. That's it. To not get angry, not get upset, not respond in a way that's judgmental. That is, it's to be stern and to be fatherly and to do the things that you're supposed to and be in all those ways. I have fear of God. So I need to also understand what that means. Not because God hates me or that he's beating me, obliviously for his entertainment or his anger. Very patient with his punishments, and the biggest one is to be separated. So when when I see all those things, I'm like, this is vital. I need to take this and I need to put it on the wall. If a name that should not be worshipped, Absalom is not a name to be worshipped. No band name should be worshipped. Bands shouldn't have fans for themselves. It's not about those things are all problematic and drive and grow into something that is problematic. Uh, it is a community. It should be a communion. It should be fellowship. And you see that with good, healthy, long-lasting bands there. So they have a good sense of relationship with, but Absalom became the thing I hung instead in the tree there. Look, here's our band. Here's Absalom. Here's the name. Don't worship us. Don't worship this name. Don't worship this band. We're not looking for fans and having a bunch of people go like, and in our egos, we will, and I will continuously have to deal with that because you get so excited. You stand on stage and you play with people and you get excited. You got to be careful. I watch my son when he's growing up, like he makes mistakes when he's very excited or when he's very bored and nothing happened, right? Or upset. That's when he kind of does the wrong things. So, uh, Absalom became a good thing. Put up this thing and put it on the wall and make a name of warning, but also name with the story that comes with it. a name of that connects with people, other Absaloms, sons that are rebelling, and be that light. This is now your ministry. Jesus came for me. Through my son, he came for me, Absalom, because I'm not Absalom, but in my behavior, I was behaving like this. And I too was able to become like a prodigal son instead, to come back home. And I'm so it's fear in that. What if and that scares me. What if I would not have had the things happen to me that made me realize it terrifies me. What life, if life at all at this point, and what curse would have been going on? It terrifies me. So I'm just like, it's like dodging a bullet, a very slow bullet I wasn't aware of. I'm alive now, and I was saved by that grace. And yeah, so Absalom is very powerful. I've always considered, like, should I have save an Absalom? Should I have a second? And you never know. It might. You have to stay open to whatever you're being called to do. But at the moment, we're yeah, it kind of stuck very.
Well, thank you. We're coming close to the end of the show, Valentin. Thank you so much. We're gonna go out with a song, "Stairs," by Absalom. And if you can tell us real quick about how this song, the name came to you.
Stairs, I think it's the stairway to heaven, right? It's the stairs. It's that, stepping stones as we go. Before we were going down, descending into the ground, and now the stairs are going up, and it's about the dying unto self process, and the gratitude, and the other things we talked about now, the struggle, the suffering, the tearing of the flesh, and the old world and the new, and but ultimately the gratitude of the soul, and submitting of the flesh, and that I get to come back home. I'm allowed back home, even though my to a place I didn't even know, but I knew it. My heart knew it, and that's it's a gratitude song to Christ, and hopefully a connecting, an emotional connecting song to those who are suffering and might be going through and have gone through the journey as well.
Awesome. Hey, I can't wait to hear it. I know the listeners can't wait to hear it. Thank you so much for being on the show. What you said resonates in the ears of the listeners or the watchers. If you like this episode and you want to hear more, please like and subscribe to get the latest and the greatest from the Johnny Taco Show.